Well, hello and a very warm welcome. Thanks for tuning in to News9 Live. Now, with the advent of artificial intelligence and the numerous possibilities of the latest generation of technology at our disposal, many questions have now cropped up as well. OpenAI's ChatGPT, Google's Bard, the Chinese search giant Baidu, Microsoft as well, you name it, all want a piece of the new industry share. And the services being provided are quite eye-boggling as well. From writing to research, from presentation to execution, machine learning has showcased why it is the way to go in the future. But at the same time, artificial intelligence-generated scripts, copies, visuals, anchors executing those scripts, coding, AI-supported applications. The global job market is questioning its safety. Amid growing excitement around artificial intelligence and bots, there's a creeping feeling of a real and present danger about the future of jobs and businesses. Also, how much intelligence can we trust AI with after all? Is a Terminator-like scenario becoming all too real? What you can do is watch our documentary, The Dark Side of the Boon, only on our application News9 Plus, to get an in-depth analysis of what AI can do and how it affects you. Here's a snippet. Take a look.
I work in a newsroom with anchors, researchers and scriptwriters, graphic artists, producers, video editors, camera crew, and what have you. But does a newsroom really need them today? Well, I decided to ask ChatGPT. Scarily enough, it tells me that AI has the potential to automate many tasks that are currently done by human resources. For example, it can analyze data to predict which stories will be popular. It can write basic news reports, and it can even edit videos. Well, the script I'm reading actually came verbatim from ChatGPT. So I can tell you, fellow scriptwriters, it's time to upskill. But that's not all. These illustrations that you see were made by DALL-E, another open AI tool. So is it goodbye graphics designers too? But we will need human beings as anchors, right?
I doubt a bot can take over your world just yet.
But I believe they will be able to do all mundane and even more specialized jobs sooner than we know.
More language and accent modifications at the snap of a finger. More analyses that required the expertise of experts just now.
For all we know, there would be newsrooms experimenting with the concept of bots anchoring news bulletins already.
Thanks, Shruti. Well, these colleagues of mine you just met are all AI generated too. So should I be worried about my job? And should you too? So very interesting times that we live in. There are three front runners when you talk about the race for the ChatGPT or the whole imagination around chatbots. First, of course, is ChatGPT itself, OpenAI. Recently, we had Microsoft invest $10 billion in ChatGPT. Closely linked to that was Google Bard. Google Bard came as an immediate response to ChatGPT. Unfortunately, it cost the parent $100 billion in market cap because of a wrong answer that it gave and got called out by experts on social media. At the same time, the Chinese internet giant Baidu is also in the bid to launch its own version of ChatGPT. It's going to be a ChatGPT rival, as it is touted. So all in all, very exciting times when it comes to AI as a concept and when it comes to companies investing in AI. But for once, there's that real sinking feeling. It's a creepy feeling of a real and present danger when it comes to jobs. And not just jobs, even business models seem to be at stake.
ChatGPT may kill many companies, may kill the model, the huge margin of Google, right? That's what Satya is saying, correct? It can all happen. So it's only innovation of a outstanding nature that can dramatically hurt these companies, not business model or business cycle.
Well, you can download our application News9 Plus for other cutting-edge documentaries for inside and in-depth analysis. But at the moment, AI and the job threat that it might produce. Joining me in the studio is the man behind the story, Amit Ranjan Kumar, my colleague. Many thanks for joining us. And also an expert voice, LV Subramanian, Senior Manager for Artificial Intelligence Sciences and IBM Quantum Ambassador at IBM Research India. Very warm welcome on the broadcast to you as well. Amit, let's get the ball rolling. In the current times, take a look at the technology, the kind of advantages it is now presenting for us. Why do you think the time was right to be producing this story? What in current times warrants such a topic?
Thank you, Kabir. This technology, OpenAI, is updating itself even in the news arena almost by the day. Even after we put out this documentary, there have been updates. GPT-4 has been launched, which is now not free. You have to pay for it. After that, Google, their first presentation lost them, as Karthik mentioned in the documentary, so many billions of dollars. But they have launched it in the US. It's only available to people in the US. Baidu made a presentation. It was a forgettable presentation, but they're all in the race. We are living in extremely disruptive times. Probably they are as disruptive as when user graphic interface was introduced in the 1980s. It is bound to make people uneasy. Some people are uneasy about it because chatbots can do things that humans used to do. What is more, what makes people more uneasy is that you don't have to learn languages, computer languages, JavaScripts and all that, to make computer programs. Children are doing it with GPT-4, making games like Snake, making games like Pong, by just giving certain instructions. None of these people have demonstrated had any knowledge of JavaScript. So that is how scary it is when it comes to the job market. And it is this technology is basically updating itself every day. We saw chatbots presenting news. That is going to get even smarter and smarter and closer and closer to how humans behave in front of the camera. And that is the scary part that people are talking about. It will give new opportunities to some kinds of people. It will take away opportunities from some people who are part of the job system in every field.
Well, absolutely. Let's take the same sentiment to the expert on the panel. Mr. Subramanian, do you echo on what Amit here is talking about? I mean, there are advantages and disadvantages of both, of anything. But at the same time, the job market threat that there is, can you help soothe anxiety of people like, anchors, script writers, people like me, and from other industries as well? The kind of, anxiety-ridden times that we're living in, given artificial intelligence and its superb capabilities.
Yeah, see, whenever a new technology comes in, right, there are 2 points, 2 moments there. One is when you get to know the technology exists, So we've been knowing that AI exists, okay, for the past 10, 15 years. We got to know that, okay, there is something called AI. With ChatGPT, this is the first time we are actually experiencing it at a scale, right? The general public has now suddenly been exposed to, AI. Suddenly they can use it, they can feel it, they can do things with it. So what that means is today, now you have the power of AI suddenly in your hands. And it'll take us a while to understand how to use it. Okay? We all have to figure out how do we live coexist with AI, right? But there are several advantages today, So for example, what kind of people will you hire? You will hire the best people who have knowledge in an area, and suddenly here is ChatGPT, OpenAI, GPT-4, which enables you. Suddenly you have a person, you have a chatbot, or you have an AI system that can actually help you in your tasks, right? So it's now for all of us, in all fields, whether it's students, whether it is anchors, whether it is even scientists, we all have to figure out how do we use this in an effective manner.
Right, and the advantages are clearly multifold. But at the same time, do you think our dependence on AI is going to, diminish and hamper our humanistic, skills and growth?
See, it's not going to happen in the near future. Okay, so all of us at this point, what we really have to figure out is how do we use this for our advantage, right? You know that you can use this, whether you're an anchor, you're a scientist, you're a student, you know you can use this, right? Whether you're a teacher, we all know there are some very useful things this technology brings to us, right? So it's for us now to think, how do we use it, right? In terms of the challenges this is going to bring, in terms of the job, we all have to adjust to that. I think we've all done that with different technologies. We used to, all of us were farmers at one time, our ancestors were. We all moved to using technology. We all used to, use telephones, mobile phones, all of that, so I don't think we should doubt the creativity of humans and to feel that there is going to be a challenge from AI in this. But yes, there are things, bad things you can do with this, definitely, and we must be alert to those possibilities. We
Right.
must think, how can we use this technology positively?
And I'll tell you something, Mr. Subramanian. When we saw these, anchors, AI-generated anchors reading out scripts, it was quite scary. There was a little gritty feeling that I personally felt. Now, on the spectrum, where do you place yourself? And quite open-ended. There is improvement to services as well, multifold, unimaginable things happening in the service industry. But at the same time, there is a clear threat of jobs, because I personally felt it watching these AI-generated, anchors. Where do you place yourself on this particular spectrum?
See, AI today is at an inflection point. It has suddenly reached a point where it is usable at a mass scale. Okay, it has touched everyone's lives, even my children's lives. They're just 11, but it has touched their lives, right? So
Right.
we are now at that point where, yes, it is a bit scary. Even as a scientist, for AI scientists, you're now wondering, oh, you now have an AI system which can self-learn. You don't have to give it labeled data anymore. It is all unlabeled data. You've just thrown data at it and it has learned itself. So there is, as you rightly said, at every, at the whole spectrum, whether it is from the layman to the top scientists, there is now that inflection point where we now, all of us, have to figure out, how do we use this technology? What are the kind of advancements we can make? There are several gaps in the technology, right? If you look at ChatGPT or all the competitors out there, they do hallucinate. They do present, improper facts as facts. So if I did not know about something, it presents it in such a convincing manner that I feel that it's correct, right?
Well, and
So,
isn't that scary?
there are.
Isn't that scary? Shouldn't that be something we should be
It
worried
is
about?
scary. It is definitely scary, but that is also, it also shows that, there are some limitations out there and we need to fix those. And it also shows that, for us, AI is, it is good. It is able to pass a lot of the exams. Maybe it will even pass the JEE exam at one point. It will start doing, as you said, the anchor's job. But there are several things that the human still brings to the table. And a lot of those things, we are not at a point where ChatGPT or any of its competitors are going to replace humans across the board. It's not happening. What is happening is it's going to have a positive effect on us to give us those tools which make us more effective.
Absolutely. But I mean, the question still arises, how surely they're not going to be replacing the entire humanity off the board, but how many humans is one human too many? That's the question we're trying to probe here as well. Amit, give us a sense of, how honestly you've been looking at it. What's your honest opinion? Have you been scared? Are you anxious about what you've seen in all of your research and reportage?
Well, what I can say is the scary part or the good part, it's a two-edged sword, is that these technologies empower democratically. It is in the hands of everybody. Tomorrow you have an idea, you want to execute it, these guys can do it for you. You don't have to have the knowledge, you don't have to go through years and years of training to basically learn coding to do something that you have in your mind. That's the good part. How do we use it? I take on from L.V. Subramaniam's argument, is the big question. what comes to mind is an analogy I read long time ago in a Superman comic where this character was reflecting that we take a good, humankinds have a tendency of taking a good thing and using it to destroy ourselves. We did that with fire. So how do we use it is the big question that will play out in the next few years, or how this technology develops, and it's developing very fast. Some of the pointers that we should be worried about is the person developing the code or the technology has his bias. When he puts that bias into, let's say, the chatbot that he has developed, that becomes scary. If he is putting radical biases into that chatbot, then that chatbot becomes something that you don't want it to be, or you can just let your imagination run wild. Where can it go? Privacy is an issue. Copyrights are an issue. These issues can be tackled. But what the human who is developing it does it. And then there's a question of how much intelligence can we trust a chatbot with? How much intelligence are we comfortable with? And something that we have touched upon in the documentary also is the big question of the kill switch.
Right, absolutely. You know, you mentioned the documentary. Let's quickly play out that snippet once again for all those viewers out there. We know it's a work in progress. Years from now, that's what Mr. Subramanian is also talking about. But what really is happening at the moment? Should you be worried? What are the aspects of AI? What can it do for the good, for the bad? Here's a look. Take it.
I work in a newsroom with anchors, researchers and scriptwriters, graphic artists, producers, video editors, camera crew, and what have you. But does a newsroom really need them today? Well, I decided to ask ChatGPT. Scarily enough, it tells me that AI has the potential to automate many tasks that are currently done by human resources. For example, it can analyze data to predict which stories will be popular. It can write basic news reports, and it can even edit videos. Well, the script I'm reading actually came verbatim from ChatGPT. So I can tell you, fellow scriptwriters, it's time to upskill. But that's not all. These illustrations that you see were made by DALL-E, another open AI tool. So isn't goodbye graphics designers too? But we will need human beings as anchors, right?
I doubt a bot can take over your world just yet.
But I believe they will be able to do all mundane and even more specialized jobs sooner than we know.
More language and accent modifications at the snap of a finger. More analyses that required the expertise of experts just now.
For all we know, there would be newsrooms experimenting with the concept of bots anchoring news bulletins already.
Thanks, Shruti. Well, these colleagues of mine you just met are all AI generated too. So should I be worried about my job? And should you too? So very interesting times that we live in. There are three front runners when you talk about the race for the ChatGPT or the whole imagination around chatbots. First, of course, is ChatGPT itself, OpenAI. Recently, we had Microsoft invest $10 billion in ChatGPT. Closely linked to that was Google Bard. Google Bard came as an immediate response to ChatGPT. Unfortunately, it cost the parent $100 billion in market cap because of a wrong answer that it gave and got called out by experts on social media. At the same time, the Chinese internet giant Baidu is also in the bid to launch its own version of ChatGPT. It's going to be a ChatGPT rival, as it is touted. So all in all, very exciting times when it comes to AI as a concept and when it comes to companies investing in AI. But for once, there's that real sinking feeling. It's a creepy feeling of a real and present danger when it comes to jobs. And not just jobs, even business models seem to be at stake.
ChatGPT may kill many companies, may kill the model, the huge margin of Google, right? That's what Satya is saying, correct? It can all happen. So it's only innovation of a outstanding nature that can dramatically hurt these companies, not business model or business cycle.
Well, now, Mr. Subramanian, you know, Amit here was talking about the kill switch and who finally has access and control to that kill switch. take a look at all the examples, the various cartoons. You've seen, machines overpowering humanity. Take a look at Iron Man's latest movie, where, his particular AI software goes rogue and, turns around and goes against the heroes in the film as well. Could something like that happen here? Who will finally have the kill switch? How much intelligence can you finally trust artificial intelligence with?
Yeah, see, today, for all mission critical tasks, right, AI is not, does not have that power given to it today, right? Mission critical tasks are still in human hands. But is it always going to be the case? No. You're already seeing it in automobiles, you're having cars self-drive, you're having it in aeroplanes where they are almost, fly-by-wire. It's almost driving itself, piloting itself. So there are places where AI has taken over, even in areas where, our lives are dependent on it, right? And we've seen that, slowly it is happening in different areas, but it only happens after a time when there is a level of confidence which is, close to 99.99 percent, where we know that human lives are not placed in danger, right? So that has been the trajectory which has been followed in terms of AI adoption. It's going to accelerate. In the future, it's going to accelerate. We are not going to give mission critical tasks to AI. We are going to keep it with humans, but slowly we are going to, yes, AI is going to permeate our lives. It is going to take one by one a lot of our, tasks that are either mundane, which are, even some creative tasks, like you said, story writing, even that is going to AI at this point.
Right, and AI isn't close to becoming sentient, which is something that we know, but the real danger lies in the fact that how soon we as humans are prone to, give it humanistic attributes and behaviors as well. Right now, the job of thinking is something the humans are doing. What if the machines that are constantly learning and adapting by the second start doing the job of thinking as well?
See, thinking is a very, very human characteristic. But, even 2 years back, we said AI cannot do humor. It is able to do humor at this point.
Right.
We said it cannot, differentiate between sadness, happiness. It is able to do it today. If you look at ChatGPT, it is able to differentiate these very human qualities and able to express them. It is able to write jokes. With GPT-4, you're now able to, it is able to recognize images. You're able to give it handwritten articles, and it creates code based on that, or creates stories based on that. Just the way, you would tell your secretary or assistant, right? You would say, okay, go write me this code. I want it to look like this. I want it to, do these tasks. You're able to specify many of those things today to the AI, and it is able to come back to you with those answers just the way a human assistant would, right? Now, the thing about thinking, right? It's a very complex thing. We have never been able to define it, right? What are these human qualities? How is a human different from an animal? How is a human or an animal different from a machine? How is a child's comprehension different from adults? So these are all questions which now we will start probing, because AI is pushing us to probe those things.
All right, and Amit, in the documentary, it does talk about a Terminator-like scenario becoming all too real. We've all seen movies. I remember Picasso drawing the prototype of the helicopter hundreds of years before we finally had one. And art imitates life and vice versa, isn't it? So is a Terminator-like scenario all too real? Do we have like a Skynet sort of a situation at hand?
For all the lovers of Hollywood and world movies, here's something to think about. GPT-4 can recognize images. The moment it came out, people demonstrated. They took photographs of a refrigerator, and that GPT-4 gave them recipes from what it saw in those photographs in the refrigerator. That is thinking. That is not something that was fed in. That is thinking. This technology is developing fast. Let's think how fast. Subramaniam talked about that the cars can park themselves. Now, if the car is driving itself, think of the day you don't have the kill switch, the driver does not have the kill switch, somebody else does, and the car stops listening to you. That is the scenario that you have to worry about. Will it happen? It's only time will tell.
Well, absolutely. Mr. Subramanian, would you like to, echo on this point as well, what he's talking about? We've got these Tesla cars, and nothing to, sort of go against the brand particularly, but these self-driven cars, what if one day just the car feels like maybe I'm not going to stop when you're asking me to stop, just rages on, maybe jumps off a cliff as well?
Yeah, see, there are many settings, where people have thought about. Okay, you're driving in a mountainous area. On one side is a cliff, the other side is the mountain. In front comes a baby. Okay, suddenly a child shows up.
Right.
Are you going to, as a human, am I going to drive, straight, kill the child? Am I going to go to the right, kill myself and all the occupants? Am I going to the left to hit the, the mountain? These are ethical and questions, cultural questions, which as humans itself, it's very hard for us to decide, right? In the 10 seconds or not split seconds that you have, what is that decision you're going to make? Now that's the kind of decision you're going to ask.
Well, it seems like we're having technical difficulties with Mr. Subramanian over there, but that's a pretty valid point that you're making over there, Amit. What if the cars suddenly go rogue? But with all the good things that come with AI as well, there are bad things for everything on this planet, isn't it? But with all the good things that come with artificial intelligence at the moment, is it a cause of concern for people out there, given the job threat, given the threat to life, and given the threat of this kill switch as well, which might be in the controls of this machine that is constantly updating and learning itself by the second?
This is work in progress, and it's extremely disruptive. So it's going to take some time even for authorities to start regulating it. And I'm sure everybody will work out ways to regulate these things. But it is extremely disruptive, and it gives, it lets your mind wander to all the possibilities that you're giving into the hands of common people who may not recognize the responsibility that comes with them. Who's to say you throw in quantum computing into AI, and who's to say that hacking becomes run of the mill, and how do people use it, and how do you regulate that?
Right.
So I hope what Mr. Subramaniam is saying is right, that only certain areas will be allowed to be used with the technology of artificial intelligence, or not others. I hope that happens, but it is work in progress. So as it develops, even counters or controls for it will start developing, and I'm sure it's already happening.
Well, absolutely. It has been a riveting and quite a goosebumpy, chilling conversation that I'm having with you folks. Mr. Subramanian, we'll give the last word to you very quickly. You see, the documentary specifies all the good things this artificial intelligence is doing for humanity as well. And we know we can work around the threats and the dangers of artificial intelligence as well. But at this moment, at this point in time, do you think there is a threat, there is something to be scared of, there is a danger out there, a threat of the unknown, for the lack of a better word?
See, there are definitely threats, okay? And as humans, we have to now start thinking, whether it is ethical questions. As a human, why don't I go and hurt somebody? I don't hurt somebody, kill somebody because there are laws, because there are, questions in my mind, ethical questions. These boundaries are not yet set for AI systems, okay? AI systems, yes, like Amit ji said, they have, you showed it a picture of a refrigerator. It is able to think and come up with answers. It is able to reason. But is it able to reason between life, death? Does it even have a culture? I come from India. I have a cultural background to me, right? I think in a certain way. Similarly, somebody from some other country who has been brought up in a certain kind of a culture, they think in a certain way. But AI today doesn't think, it doesn't have that background to it. It doesn't have that baggage to it, So it is right now, it's an open thing, it's able to think in any fashion that it likes. and there are no boundaries. And that's where we as the humans, we as the governments, we as the users of these systems need to now think deeply in terms of where is this technology going, what are the boundaries we need to place. Just the way we place boundaries on ourselves, what
Right.
are the boundaries on this technology that we need to place?
Well, it seems like boundaries is the way to go. We'll have to set up these boundaries, and also, well, just like humans also cross those boundaries. When AI finally crosses those boundaries, maybe we'll try and burn that bridge when we get to that. Meanwhile, AI is not sentient at this point in time, and the good, it seems like, is outweighing the bad that is coming out of all this technology. It has been a riveting conversation. Amit, many thanks for joining us here in the studio. Mr. Subramanian, always a pleasure speaking to you. We're going to slip into a quick break here. News content continues on the other side. Keep watching News9 Live.
Hello and welcome. You are watching News9 Live. I am Krishna Kumar. One of the stalwarts of Indian cinema from the southern Indian state of Kerala, from the Malayalam film industry, Innocent, passed away after a long battle with cancer last evening. Innocent had acted in hundreds of Malayalam films as well as in other languages including Tamil, Kannada, Hindi and English as well, and was noted for his timeless acting in varied characters, mainly comic, but he has done everything from comedy to being a villain as well. To understand his contributions to the silver screen and to the art of cinema, we have with us Mr. Ajit Vijay Kumar, my colleague from News9, joining us. Ajit, thank you so much for being with us here. Let's remember this legend called Innocent. I mean, it's so sad that he's passed away, but it's a good time then for us to tell the people who don't know about him as well as to what a legend he was. Talk to us in terms of, what made him special the most.
Right, so it's very difficult to summarize someone like Innocent in one or two words. He was certainly a stalwart and a superstar when it comes to Malayalam cinema. Not just Malayalam cinema, as you said, that his contribution should be looked at more from an angle of Indian cinema and what he has done for Indian cinema. To coming to Innocent as a actor, I would say what defines him and in common sense and how people perceive him as a more of an comedian. But I would say that he was much more than a comedian. He was a superb character actor. He was, during the 80s and 90s, he started his career in 1972 and he acted in over 700 films over this 4-5 decades in cinema. But the 80s and 90s were when he, along with a lot of 8 or 10 other superstars, and when I say superstars in Malayalam cinema, superstars are not superstars as it's in as is it in Bollywood. Superstars are more of character actors who actually pulled the cinema together. So Innocent, along with others like Jairam Ravi and others there, and
many, but especially his films, his combination with Laletan, with Mohanlal. That is the legend combination of Innocent and Laletan across many movies in 90s and across not just Laletan. He's worked with all legends over there. But I really want to take this discussion further, from movies, because we're talking about Mr. Innocent, who was an MP from Chalakudi constituency. He was a politician as well. Talk to us about his foray in politics.
Right. So I would say that politics came to Innocent by chance. I think he was not a politician at heart. Of course, he was left-leaning and he contested as an independent candidate with left backing and won the Chalakudi Lok Sabha constituency in 2014. And prior to that also he was part of the municipal corporation early in 80s as well. But we should not primarily look at it from a political angle, because he was, as I said, he was
and the reluctant politician.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely, right. So his contribution is more to the society at large, I would say. And as you say that Malayalis and people in Kerala and their sense of humor is quite different from how people perceive humor generally in India.
I'm from Chennai, I'm from Tamil Nadu, which is nearby, and I know how different the Malayali humor is, how subtle that humor is, and a legend like Innocent is like an epitome of that Malayali humor. Quintessential Malayali humor.
The thing is that Malayali humor is more about satire and sarcasm and how you can make it mainstream. And Innocent certainly was a class apart. and he was someone who actually defined it in the 80s and 90s, I would say.
Okay, if at this stage, if I were to ask, which was the best performance according to you from the golden days of the 80s and the 90s?
Quite difficult to pick one for someone like Innocent.
Okay, pick three. Pick the ones that come to your mind first.
I would certainly want to suggest, there was this movie called as Manar Mattai Speaking. And I'm, mentioning this movie for a reason, because the Hindi remake of it is what we know, and the whole Babu Bhaiya cult that was built in Hindi, he was the original Babu Bhaiya, right? So that's what he did to cinema, at large. And then in 70s, as you rightly said, that he had great comic timing when it came to superstar like Mohanlal. And they did fabulous cinema together, in the 70s and 80s, particularly in the 80s and 90s, I would say.
Yeah.
And there was this movie called as Nadodi Kaat, which is where then they actually go to Chennai and all that happens later.
The Nadodi Kaat, which eventually went on to become a franchise film, one of the first franchise films in India, much before Munna Bhai and other things came around. Nadodi Kaat, Akre Akre, and that entire series that began with Nadodi Kaat, the original legend, Innocent was there. Talk to us, in terms of his later work. What were your perceptions of his much later work, in his life?
So eventually what happened was that he actually made a mark for himself as an actor and actor of real consequence in the 80s and 90s. And for the actors and generation that came after that in Malayalam cinema, I think he emerged as a father figure, someone who could go to for all and everything, and that's possibly the reason that he was the president of the Association of the Cine Actors for 12 straight years, right? For 4 consecutive terms, and that's why the kind of outpouring that you see, and a lot of actors being not able to even absorb that he's no more, is kind of suggestive of the tall stature that he had within his fraternity.
So, and same with the people of Kerala as well, Malayalis, in Kerala and across the world, when on a bad day they all watched an innocent comedy scene, to go to sleep, happy. That's the kind of attachment that Malayalis have with Innocent, isn't it?
Right, of course, and talking about Innocent and the kind of roles that he played, and the perfect coming timing that he had, and he was the actual king of one-liners, I would say. And he would take a normal scene to that stratospheric level where you would have ache in your stomach laughing, but then you can't stop. That kind of a range that he have in terms of getting you off the table in terms of comedy, pure comedy.
But tell us, how is it that the people of Kerala have loved him both as a comedian and as a villain? Here is somebody who's done the full spectrum.
No, so that's what Innocent had one very good streak in him, and that was that he could lace villain roles or being unkind with comedy. And that's not something that many actors, I would say that even at a global scale, not many actors can actually do that. That someone is being villainous, but you kind of love him, right? So that's Innocent, right? So that's Innocent, and eventually in his later years, I would say that post his battle with cancer, and interestingly and sadly so, he along with his wife both were diagnosed with cancer in 2012. And he kind of survived it, and in 2015 he kind of came out and said that he's past that phase. But what he did importantly is that he wrote a full book, a kind of memoir in terms of how he felt and what was the journey like, and that gives us so many shades of him in terms of a battle-hardened survivor who knew that adversaries will come in life, but one has to kind of overcome with comedy, possibly.
He lived that philosophy, isn't it? And also, Innocent was also somebody who made sure the prominent social themes were represented in cinema. That's a huge part of his own contribution to cinema per se, isn't it?
Of course. As I said, 700 movies, so you can imagine the scale of his work, right?
Yeah.
His scale of work is immense.
The volume of
work and the kind of roles that he has taken up during his illustrious career is unmatchable. One notable example I would like to give is like in one of his movies, he played a North Indian politician, right? And and his very famous line, and that is something that is being spoken in Malayali homes even today, is that he's saying "Naril pani lao" in kind of trying to suggest, and the people there are not able to understand as to what is he trying to suggest, right? People think that he's asking for booze. So he was a and just not his body of work in cinema. I think he was also a great philanthropist and someone who kind of defined a way of living in the sense of
he gave back to society as much as he got, as much as the love he got from society.
Of course, and as I said, post his cancer phase, right? That's when he kind of got more evolved in terms of wanting to give back to the society, and also his journey through that cancer phase and the book he wrote, I think he titled it as "Laughter in the Cancer Ward," right? So he kind of explained everything and suggested the way out, that eventually adversity, all this will come to us in life, but how is that we deal with it is what matters, and that is how he lived his life.
Right, and with that, I'm afraid we've run out of time here on this discussion, but here's to the legend Innocent, rest in peace, Innocent. Thank you, Ajit, for joining us on this discussion. With that, it's a wrap here on this edition of News 9 Live. Thank you so much for watching. Keep it with News 9. This is Krishna Kumar signing off.
Hello and welcome. Breaking news coming in. The Supreme Court has refused to stay the ED summons to Bharatiya Rashtra Samiti member K. Kavita, and she had given a plea for relief from the summons from ED, and now it looks like the court has not entertained it. So basically she will go through the under the ED lens. Remember, K. Kavita is the daughter of Chief Minister of Telangana K. Chandrasekhar Rao, and she also is an MLC with the party. She had sought protection from arrest and had challenged the summons by the Enforcement Directorate in connection with the alleged Delhi excise policy scam. The court has also said, as per norms, a woman can't be summoned for questioning before the ED in its office, and her questioning should take place at her residence. Joining me on the broadcast is my colleague Ashok Bagria. Ashok, how do you see this verdict, especially not a win-win situation, obviously, but she could not get what she was desiring, a relief from the court as far as the case is concerned?
Well, Pankaj, immediately if we were to look at this case, there are two aspects to it. Basically, Kavita had approached the Supreme Court saying that she should not be called to the Delhi office of the Enforcement Directorate for questioning with respect to the Delhi excise policy offence which have been committed and investigations for which are going on. She said that she's a woman. So far, she's not been called as an accused, and she should not be called for investigation to Delhi, and the place where if she is to be questioned by the Enforcement Directorate should be done at her residence. Today the Supreme Court said that they're not inclined to go into this question because there are larger questions which are involved with this case, which also have a bearing on the Abhishek Banerjee case, the Nalini Chidambaram case, where a similar question has been raised. And what they have done is that they have tagged Kavita's petition along with those cases and said that this matter should come up for hearing within 3 weeks' time. However, when the hearing was going on in the Supreme Court, the center was led by the Enforcement Directorate was led by the Solicitor General and the Additional Solicitor General, who strongly put up an argument saying that this kind of a relief should not be given to Kavita because there already exists a judgment by a 3-judge bench of the Supreme Court in Vijay Madan Lal Chaudhary's case, where the Supreme Court has held that as far as processes of CRPC, of the Criminal Procedure Code is concerned, they will not apply to PMLA proceedings or PMLA inquiry as long as there is a complaint which is not filed against the accused. So on these technical grounds, there was opposition by the Enforcement Directorate. However, at the end of the day, there's no relief for K. Kavita, who has been summoned by the Enforcement Directorate to come to Delhi and appear for questioning.
Right, Ashok, also this whole episode of the questioning and whether K. Kavita wanted to appear or not, she was camping in Delhi, but the politics of it is also gaining momentum side by side. We have seen how Manish Sisodia, after initial rounds of questioning, both by the CBI and the ED, now lands behind bars. Do you believe that there is more to it in this case as far as the Delhi excise policy is concerned and the legal aspects of it also, because these are the primary questioning that these individuals are going through. K. Kavita also has been interviewed thrice before the ED, but this time around she was summoned to Delhi. Do you believe that, such steps, smaller steps by ED again are indicative towards a bigger picture that both the ED and the CBI are trying to arrive at in this particular case?
See, you're right. There are actually two aspects to this Delhi excise policy case. One is the political aspect of it and there's the legal aspect of it. The legal aspect is being battled in the Supreme Court of India, where various technical questions are being raised pertaining to the Enforcement Directorate's right to question a person with respect to that corruption case, and whether it should be carried out at the headquarters in Delhi or whether it should be carried out at the residence of allegedly the accused. Now, politically, this thing has been playing out for a long time now. In fact, there are voices which are being raised by political opposition leaders, and in fact, there is even a petition in the Supreme Court where 14 political parties cutting across political spectrum have come to the Supreme Court and have said that what is being seen of late is that the number of cases which are being launched by the CBI and the Enforcement Directorate against political leaders just before the elections is a matter of scrutiny, and the Supreme Court should intervene in such cases and lay down some pre-arrest or post-arrest guidelines for granting of bails for such political leaders. Besides that, the politicians have been saying, or rather have been criticizing the BJP government, saying that the Enforcement Directorate, first it was the CBI which was the caged parrot of the government. Now the Enforcement Directorate has become a parrot which is doing what the government wants it to do, and that is basically to target the political opponents. Now the Telangana Chief Minister, Mr. K. Chandrasekhar Rao, has been a strong opponent of the BJP, and possibly it looks like there have been, in fact, her daughter herself, his daughter herself, K. Kavita, has said that she was being targeted because of her father, and the ED was trying to settle political score at the behest of the Bharatiya Janata Party.
Well, indeed, Ashok, obviously the pinch of politics that is, it's peppered all across in this particular case. So one final question, Ashok, before I let you go. 3 weeks' time, the Supreme Court has given in a way that to hear K. Kavita's plea once again to get reprieve from ED's questioning. Do you believe that this is also in a way 3 weeks deadline to the ED also to expedite and put plans in process as far as K. Kavita's questioning is concerned?
Well, this particular adjudication which will happen by the Supreme Court within 3 weeks, or in fact, there is a case which is coming up for hearing in the Supreme Court tomorrow itself, where the previous judgment of the Supreme Court in Vijay Madan Lal Chaudhary is being under review. So now if the Supreme Court decides to review that judgment and sends it for consideration before a higher bench of 5 judges, then all proceedings will come to a halt. Now that will be a huge setback for the Enforcement Directorate, because every time that matter gets raked up, K. Kavita will always tell that, this matter is pending adjudication in the Supreme Court, and in the meantime, she will be willing to cooperate with the Enforcement Directorate. If they want to question her, they can come to her residence and question her. So at the moment, the scales are evenly placed for Kavita as well as for the Enforcement Directorate. It will all depend on what happens tomorrow or in the next 3 weeks as to whether Kavita will actually come to Delhi for questioning by the Enforcement Directorate, or the Enforcement Directorate's hands will be tied by the Supreme Court pending the final adjudication in the matter.
Right, Ashok, and just for the benefit of our viewers, one quick update, one quick overview of this whole now scrapped Delhi excise policy case. Remember, we saw Delhi Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia going behind the bars after a series of rounds of questioning. Ashok, one quick overview how this case is panning out till now, and what is the government actually trying to find out here as far as the money laundering aspect is concerned?
Well, there are two investigating agencies which are actually probing the Delhi excise case. One is the corruption case, which is being probed by the Central Bureau of Investigation, and the other is a fallout of that corruption case, which is money laundering, and that is being probed by the Enforcement Directorate. Now, there are two aspects. One is money laundering and one is the actual crime. As far as the Enforcement Directorate is concerned, the case is simple, that certain kickbacks were paid to people associated with the Aam Aadmi Party government, as well as people who benefited out of the Delhi excise policy. And there were money which were transferred to them, and they were parked in some shell companies abroad and within India. So Enforcement Directorate is basically trying to figure out the money trail which was a consequence of the bribes or the kickbacks paid in the Delhi excise policy case. Whereas the CBI, the Central Bureau of Investigation, is clearly just looking at the criminal aspect of the case, where they are trying to figure out who are the people who were involved in this case and whether they can be penalized or prosecuted under the Prevention of Corruption Act.
Well, Ashok Bagaria there explaining how deep this rabbit hole goes as far as the now scrapped Delhi liquor excise policy case is concerned. We'll keep a close eye on the matter. Keep watching News 9 Plus.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Around the World here on News 9. I am Krishna Kumar. Straight to the big international story that we're tracking here. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu sacked his defense minister Yoav Gallant on Sunday, and that triggered mass protests across the country. This came a day after Gallant broke ranks with the Israeli government of Netanyahu and urged a halt to the highly contested plan to overhaul Israel's judicial system. Thousands and thousands of Israelis arrived on the streets for protests, continuing with the way they've been for the last several weeks or even a couple of months. Flora Bradley Watson from Reuters reports.
Tens of thousands of people took to the streets across Israel on Sunday, angry after the country's defense minister, Yoav Gallant, was sacked. Just a day earlier, Gallant had broken ranks with the government and urged a halt to a highly contested plan to overhaul the justice system. Demonstrators blocked a major highway in Tel Aviv, waving blue and white Israeli flags and lighting bonfires. They also gathered outside Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's private residence in Jerusalem.
We are here for the democracy. Bibi is not here for the democracy. Thank you very much.
We're here to protest. We feel that we have no other way. This has to be stopped. This Prime Minister is not qualified anymore.
Police later used water cannon to disperse the demonstrators. Israel has been gripped by mass protests since the government announced its plans for the justice system in January. The new measures hand the executive wider freedom to name judges to the Supreme Court. In a televised address on Saturday, Gallant urged Netanyahu to suspend the legislation, warning the bitter dispute posed an immediate danger to national security. Netanyahu was on trial for corruption charges that he denies, has vowed to continue with the project. He says the legislation is necessary to rein in activist judges and restore the proper balance between an elected government and the courts. The United States said it was deeply concerned by Sunday's events and saw an urgent need for compromise. Israel's Consul General in New York responded to Gallant's sacking by resigning.
Shifting focus away from Israel to Canada, which has blocked the Chinese-owned social media app TikTok from government-issued devices. Canada says TikTok presents an unacceptable level of risk to privacy and security. Now, Canada has also moved to block government employees from downloading the application in the future. The Treasury Board of Canada's Secretariat has officially confirmed this in a statement. TikTok's data collection methods provide considerable access to the contents of the phone, according to the Treasury Board of Canada's Secretariat. Let's now listen to what Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau had to say.
We're making the decision that for government employees, for government equipment, it is better to not have them access TikTok because of the concerns that people have in terms of safety. This may be a first step, it may be the only step we need to take, but every step of the way we're going to be making sure we're keeping Canadians safe. And certainly I suspect that as government takes the significant step of telling all federal employees that they can no longer use TikTok on their work phones, many Canadians, from businesses to private individuals, will reflect on the security of their own data and perhaps make choices in consequence. But I'm always a fan of giving Canadians the information for them to make the right decisions for them.
Now, as the exodus of Western car makers narrows options for people in Russia, Russian car buyers, Chinese automakers are now filling up that gap, and it's forcing Russians to overcome their reluctance to embrace Chinese brands and also pay higher prices as well. Reuters' Julian Satterthwaite reports.
Russian car buyers have some new brand names to get their heads around. Chinese makers have rushed in to fill the gap left by Western firms that have pulled out. That leaves shoppers to learn about companies like Haval and Geely. So far, the welcome is wary at best. Car buyers Reuters spoke to were unsure about the quality of the new offerings. At the price they're charging, the plastics look cheap, says one man. Auto journalist Sergei Aslanyan says that reflects a Russian perception that Chinese products are down market.
If a person in Russia wants to put somebody down, they will say that, hey, you have a Chinese phone or your car is Chinese. At the moment, people are not that hungry to show demand for Chinese products. We need to end up like Cuba first, to turn into pedestrians over the years, and then maybe we will lower the expectations enough for Chinese cars.
Sales figures tell a different story, though. Chinese brands now have almost 40% of Russia's car market, up from less than 10% early last year. The main driver may be the simple fact of availability. In the eastern city of Vladivostok, Vladimir Shestak sells Western and Chinese brands.
In light of all the recent events, we mostly rely on Geely sales now. But we continue to sell Mercedes cars. Some of them are bought via parallel import. Some are leftover stock from before.
Russians increasingly have little choice, with most Western brands already gone. Volkswagen's Skoda unit is currently in the final stages of negotiating a deal to sell its assets. The departure of such firms was one factor in a near 60% slump in total car sales last year. For many buyers, that means it may soon be a case of go Chinese or catch the bus.
Now, moving on to the world of online retail, where Amazon and other big online retailers who use so-called free delivery to cultivate customer loyalty, they are now scrambling to keep it from draining profits as costs are rising higher and higher and e-commerce contracts are narrowing. This report by Reuters' Alex Cohen tells you more.
There's no such thing as free shipping. Amazon and other retailers who tout the benefit are actually adding fees for faster delivery, raising minimum purchase requirements, and scrambling to make other changes to keep so-called free shipping from draining profits as costs climb and online sales fall. And those costs are shifting to consumers who are struggling with financial issues of their own. Amazon raised the price of its Prime subscription and set a minimum purchase price for free same-day shipping and a charge when orders fall below that. It also quadrupled the minimum price for free Prime shipping from its struggling online grocery business. And the e-commerce giant is not alone. Popular apparel chains like Zara, Abercrombie & Fitch, and Foot Locker are drawing the line at losing money on a service consumers have come to expect. Kelly Eisen, the owner of Einstein Pets in Atlanta, told Reuters she ended free shipping last year on purchases of some items and switched to flat-rate shipping. It is an open secret that most retailers raise product prices to subsidize free shipping. Still, product inflation and soaring shipping costs are making the service unsustainable as the prospect of recession threatens to wallop already flagging online spending.
Moving on to London, where the Westminster Abbey has said that now visitors will get the chance this summer to follow King Charles's coronation footsteps, getting access for the first time in living memory to an area completely sealed off to the public until now in all history. Visitors will now get the chance to follow King Charles's coronation footsteps. It will be the first time, and King Charles will be crowned, incidentally, on the 6th of May at the Westminster Abbey in London. Visitors will be able to walk barefoot on the Cosmati pavement. The mosaic flooring was made of marble, stone, glass and metal, but it was such in poor state that it had to undergo many repairs and conservation work as well.
It's such a rare opportunity. Nobody apart from the clergy go up to this space. So for visitors to come here and be able to walk on the pavement and get up close and look at the designs and all the different materials that make up this incredible piece of art, it's going to be just a once-in-a-lifetime experience. It was in such a deteriorated state that it couldn't be used, so it was always protected with carpet. So for the first time in kind of known history, this pavement will be on view and used for a coronation. So we get to see all the beautiful designs, all the colourful stones that make up this amazing work of art.
And with that, it's a wrap here on this edition of Around the World. Thank you so much for watching. This is Krishna Kumar signing off.